Here is a tutorial that I'm going to try to speed through because it's a lengthy process, and I'm not going to cover everything that you see on this page because it's a lengthy process. Okay, so what the focus of this tutorial is how to make a navigation pane, I guess, a navigation bar in a page, right? It doesn't have to be a navigation bar, but I'm going to show you this navigation bar, and it can be applied to any part of a page, right? We're basically talking about list items that have within them other list items, right? And this kind of menu or navigation panel is very common at the top of a page, but they can be placed anywhere. It could go over to the left on the side, or details. It can lead you anywhere, right? So I'm just going to show this part. For the assignment, though, you need to do 4 drop-downs, separate drop-downs in different parts of the page. Okay, you need the practice, and like I said, it's complicated, and I'll stop talking and move on to this. Okay, so here we are. I'm going to create a new page, and it's just an HTML page. I'll deal with the CSS on that page. All right, so here we are, and I'll keep the CSS, the styling up in the top. But before I get there, I'm going to write out the HTML to make the basic elements that are involved here. So all the HTML is written in the body, right? So here we go. The first element that's up there, that you see anyway, visually, is the header, right? The header is a semantic element. Okay, sorry. I have to put something there. Okay, this is so fun, right? So there's the header. It's a semantic element. You call it the header, and what do you know? There it says up there. This is so fun. Okay, keep your eyes on details. There's the header. Okay, the next thing you have under headers, oftentimes, is a nav bar. Okay, nav bar. I call it nav bar. You can call it what makes sense to you. To me, nav bar is kind of quick and easy, right? It's goes right under the header. You see it all the time. It is not, despite all that, nav bar. I have to use that as a class. It's not a specific, official HTML5 element. So I go in here and I go div and class equals navbar, right? Navbar. Okay. And within the navbar, there are going to be some, that's where my navigation is going to be. Actually, that's where I'm going to put the nav. And believe it or not, nav is a official semantic element, right? And it's going to be nested within this nav bar. So I'm not putting in the closing tag yet. I'm putting in nav, right? And within nav, nested within that, is a list. Okay, it's an unordered list. It could be an ordered list, but I'm going to use an unordered list. That's UL, unordered, right? And then whenever you have a UL or an OL, you have list items. So LI, I'm just going to go simple words, 1, closing tag, LI, 2, closing tag, LI, 3, and that's all I'll do. So now it needs to be closed. The unordered list needs to be closed. So /, right? Okay, I'm not finished yet, right? I'm going to nest things within 1, 2, 3, but the nav will be finished. So I'll go hashtag, or not hashtag, but /nav, right? And Dreamweaver is doing a nice job of kind of embedding or tabbing in these lines of code to make them a little bit easier to see. Okay, so here we get a little bit more tricky. I'm going to go here, and here is right after my first list item, 1, and I'm going to bump I bumped down the closing list tag, and embedded in there, or nested in there, is another unordered list. Right, and I have a feeling, you know, you gotta keep your eyes open for little mistakes. Right? Forewarning. There's my closing. So now I have an unordered list that's big, medium, small, nested in the list item of 1, right? And I could keep doing that. It'll get more and more complicated. If I do that, I'm going to let it go. I'm going to go under 2, repeat, right? Bump the closing tag down for that list item, put nest, let me say put nest an unordered list inside there. Repeating, and red. Oops. Oh, come on. Red, green, blue. How's that? Okay. Close. Okay. And again, this list could go on and on. No need to do that. All right. And then one more time, nesting a list within the 3 list item. Right. So another one. Circles, squares, circles, rectangles, really? Okay. All right. Okay. There it is. Quite complicated. And it's not showing up here. Why is that? Oh, I think it's probably because I haven't finished. Oh, there it is. It's just about Dreamweaver refreshing. Okay, so there we go. So we've got 1, 2, 3. That's a list in itself. Big, medium, small. It's another list. Red, green, blue, another list. Nicely nested in there. Right? They're showing the markers, the circles, and the discs. Right? We're going to leave that for a second, and well, it's all about styling it, so we'll leave that. I'm going to go to wrapping all of these things in one big wrapper. Okay, this is a way of having a complicated page be centered on the screen. Okay, so if you wrap everything on here, you can say with that wrapper, I want it to be so wide. I want it to be centered, and what it does is center everything. So if I have 5 different elements within that wrapper, the header, the nav, an article, a footer, an aside, so on, I can organize those all within the wrapper and say I want that wrapper to be centered and work from there. Okay, so I'm still in HTML. Above the header is where the wrapper goes. Wrapper is not semantic, so I have to go div class equals wrapper. Okay. And it is encompassing everything, right, all the way down past my nav bar. Right, so I'm going to go nav bar, closing div. Right, so here's the div. It's related. By the way, it's a really nice feature in Dreamweaver. If you highlight one of these tags, it tells you its corresponding tag, which is problematic. You know, when you get down here and you just see a /div, and you're like wondering, well, what is that attached to? Just click on it, and it highlights the 2, letting you know what's up. Okay. Okay, so another complicated thing before I go into styling is this is the navigational bar that's going to be under the header, right? But I want to be able to center that. And what I do is I put the nav inside another div, and I call that the nav bar. No, I have it here. Actually, I already made that. That's cool. Somehow I missed it completely. Okay. And what I don't see now is that I don't have the closing div for the wrapper. That's what it is. Okay, sorry for the confusion. Bear with me. Okay, now that should all be straight. Okay, cool. All right, sorry. This closing div is associated with this opening div that's the wrapper. The next one up is the nav bar. Okay, and then the next one is the nav. Okay, sorry about that. Let me bump this stuff in, boink, down here, tab it in, and that works. Okay, so there we are. So now let's go on to styling, and I'll deal with the wrapper first. Well, actually, even before that, I'm going to go up here into title, and I'm going to take the padding and the margin off of everything, every element anyway. And you do that with the asterisk, and then curly brace, and you just say padding 0. Right, padding 0. Oh, and there's a reason why my text is looking white up here. And while I'm adding margin, you might think about why is that? Because you might run into this yourself. And I'll just tell you the reason is I didn't put the style tags here. These are only necessary when you're putting style in your HTML page. Right? And now you can see padding and margin are purple and green. Right? So I've taken all the padding and all of the margin off of any elements there. And consequently, now all the text looks like it's aligned left, right? Looks like it also lost the discs and the circles, but they're actually just outside of the page. We don't see them, but they are there. Okay, so now styling the wrapper. Okay, it is a class, so you need to give it a period. So period, wrapper, right? Curly brace, like that. Okay. The wrapper, you could put color in it if you want to see what it's actually doing. And why don't I do that just so we can do that. So I'll go background color, and I'll give it a very light gray. Okay, something like up here. Maybe even lighter than that. And I'll make that there. So now you see, oh, there's that gray. Okay, that's the wrapper, right? And you can define the size of the wrapper by pixels. You can define it by percentages too. This wrapper, the width of it, just for the sake of being able to see it and work with it, I'm going to make the width not 100%. I know there are lots of pages that go way beyond, all the way out to the edges left and right, but I'm going to go for the sake of convenience and being able to do easy math, I'm going to say 800 pix, width, height. I'll make it, this I will make it 100% to just prove something, I guess. And what I'm proving is like, oh, the wrapper goes all the way to the bottom of a page when it's 100%. Should resize here. Well, actually, you know what? Here's why it's not resizing. Because another thing I need to add in the styling up here, and I think I'll do it before I do wrapper. I'm going to enter this after my asterisk styling. So I'm going to do HTML, which is the whole page. I just did update, by the way. Comma, body, curly brace. And I'm going to give this the height is 100%. The the width. 100%. Right? And that ensures that the body, basically, of the page is filling up the window. Okay, but my wrapper is only 800 pixels wide, and now I'll center it, right, with margin 0 pix auto. Right, now it's centered. Okay, and now that we're off of the left edge, you see the markers for the lists, right? Okay, well, we're going to deal with those in a second, but this is so fun. That's up in the header. Right. So let's style the header next. So here comes the header. Header semantic. You can just write header. Okay, there you go. We'll make it height. I'll say 60 pixels. Right. And width. I can use percentages, or I could say, like, I'll just show you. If I hope it's obvious if I make it 800 pix. It's going to go all the way to the edges of the wrapper, and we can't see it, so let's make it. Give it a color. Orange. There you go. Okay. All right. But I could say, if I said 100%, the width on the header, it would still, it stretches the whole width 100% of the wrapper, of its encapsulating div, right, which is a wrapper. So you can call it by percentages, you can call it by pixels, right, in this case. Okay, I want to center the text. By now you all know how to do that. So that is text align, center, right? So it's centered left and right. How do you center it top and bottom? That's line height. And you make the line height the same height as the box itself that it's in. Right? In this case it's 60 pixels. And now my text is right there, right in the middle of that box. The text itself is not styled. I can choose a font family for it. I can choose the font size for it. I can choose the color for it. And all of those things are just so. Like here's color. Color. And I'll give it a, like, since that's orange, I'll just go, I'll give it a deep, like a brown, dark brown. Every time I press this plus, by the way, I get a new swatch up here. Right. Okay, so there. It's not, let's see if it's going to update a little bit here. It's not black, it's just very dark. But, so, and I can go in here, and I could style it here. I could give it the font family and so on. That's actually where I would change the font family. But just to make this more look like a title, I'm going to come down to the header, and in here, commonly used H tags for headers are H1. I'll just go there. H2. Oops. No, H1. Sorry. There you go. So this is so fun. And as you go from 1 up to 6, the font size gets smaller and smaller. Right. So I can go like that. I could type all this stuff and make it caps. Here's another way to make all of text caps like that. It's text transform, uppercase. You have other choices in here. Full width, inherit, lowercase, like that. So here's uppercase, and there you go. And I can do letter spacing. Pix, right? I can use, you know, I've been using pix, been talking about pix. I could use like 1.4 rem, right? So EMs and REMs are another way of defining size for type, and it has to do with magnification, like zooming in and out of a web page. So That's often used as opposed to pixels or points. But 1.4 is a little bit too much for me. I'm going to shrink that down a little bit. Okay. I could keep going messing with that, but I won't. Okay, so let's call that done, right? The header is done. What's the next thing here? We've got the header. Oh, it's this nav bar. Okay, so nav bar. Here comes the class for nav bar. Whenever you do a class, it's period nav bar, right? And I'm going to make the height 30 pixels. The width, I could call it 100%. I can call it 800 pixels. Either way. Calling it percentages might help a little bit with scaling a page, for instance. But okay, so I'll do that 100%. I would need to be consistent about that with these kind of blocks here. But, so there's the width. We want to see it. Background color. I'll just make it something easy to see. Yellow. Okay, nav bar. There it is. There's the nav bar. Okay, showed up. You know, I wouldn't keep it that color necessarily, but like I said, it's just good to give something a color so that you can see what's happening. Okay, so that nav bar is there. The next thing is the nav. That's all of our lists and whatnot, right? So style the nav. Okay, here we go. Nav is semantic. So here is nav. And we're going to go with height. I'm going to make it fit right inside the nav bar. So if my nav bar is 30 pixels, I'm making the nav 30 pixels, right like that. I'm going to make the width. Now the width, this nav bar has three major elements, or three major items that you'll see at the top. Right, and I'm going to center them. You could put them to the left, you could put them to the right. I'm going to center them. So, and I'm not going to make this nav as wide as the nav bar, right? Because I have three of these selections, I'm going to make this nav bar 600 pixels, right? And this will allow me to make the three major selections 200 pixels width each. So easy math, right? And that's true whether you're doing percentages or whether you're doing pixels like this. Again, I like to add color so I can see that it's there, differentiating it from the nav bar, for instance. Background color. There, to that blue. Okay, so there it is. By default, it's off to the left, but margin, and you know what I'm going to say. Right now it's centered. Margin 0, pix auto. It's centered. Okay, so the nav bar is situated. The next thing are the lists. The lists under there. Okay, and this is where things get a little bit more difficult. Okay, so I'm going to come in here, and the first list is this unordered list, and it's encapsulating everything else. Right. So I want the list items in the first list to be spread horizontally across the nav bar instead of vertically like they are right now. Right, so I'm going to write this by saying, okay, nav ul, this is the ul nested within that nav. Li is the list item, plural, nested within the ul that's in the nav, right? Curly brace. Okay, there we go. And I'll go height, same as the nav and same as the nav bar, that's 30 pixels. Right. Width, there are three of these elements, right? And I said my nav is 600 divided by 3, it's 200 pixels. Right? And it looks kind of confusing here. Like you might be looking at this on your own, you're like, oh, what happened, right? Well, what do you need to do to get things going horizontally? Float, right? float left, right? Now it still looks a little bit off, right? It's like, okay, float left and it's not centered. How do I center that? Jeez Louise. It's about text, right? So we go text align, center, and now it's centered. Now we still have all these markers. How do you get rid of markers in lists? You say list style, and you say none. Oops. Right, so there you go. Right, and it's looking a little bit funky here. Right. Okay, and I'm going to say that these list items right there, I'm going to go and say font size. And I'm going to say, I'm going to try 14 pixels. It needs to be bigger. I can do, let's see what 1 rem looks like. Let's make it bigger, 1.2 rems. Okay, so that's a little bit bigger. It's not centered in here, and that has to do again with line height. And line height, if we want these to be centered on a 30 pixel height div, you say line height 30 pixels. Okay, now they're centered. Okay, now here's a really good thing to see is that I've got this navigational list. I changed the size of the font, and it changed the font size in 1, 2, 3. It also changed the font size in everything below it, right? That's because font size is inherited, right, from the parent div, right? These divs are underneath those divs, right? They're inheriting this size trait there. How do we fix that, or how do we change it? We go like this, and we say nav, whoops, no caps there, nav ul, li ul, so we're digging down through the nested items, right? And li, curly brace, right? Okay, so now we're actually, this ulli, the second batch is nested within the first, right? Right, so they're down here. So just to prove that, I'm going to say font size, and I'm going to change that size from 1.2 rems to, let's say, I'll try 0.8 rem. Okay, it might be too small, but now you can see, like, oh, okay, so what you're doing is like digging down through the levels, right? You're going, entering the nav, going into the first unordered list, into the second unordered list, right? That's what these consecutive elements are telling you there. That's a little bit too small for my taste. I'm going to make it like that. Okay. So now what I'm doing is styling these blocks down here. So I'm going to go like this. As you can see, even though I gave the nav a color up here, this cadet blue, it wasn't in something then inherited, right? So I'm going to go like this, though. I'm just going to add that background color. Cadet blue. Okay, so now everything is cadet blue, for better or worse, right? Okay, still isn't quite where we want to be, but we've taken a major plunge here and arranged these lists appropriately. I think what I'm going to do here is take a break, because this video is getting quite long. It's going to be huge, and I'll pick up on a second round, okay, to talk about nesting these so that they're hidden and that they appear with mousing over or hovering over the top 3 elements. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. We've got that. Okay, talk to you soon.